For 15 years, Alex had worn his loyalty to his wife, Emma, like armor. He wasn't perfect, but he had always taken pride in the one thing he was certain about. He was a faithful husband. In a world where temptations ran rampant, he stayed resolute. His marriage wasn't perfect, whose was? But Emma was his everything. And then, one night, that steadfastness shattered. It had been a rare outing with his childhood friends, a group that lived more on nostalgia than present connection. They had gathered at a downtown bar, the kind of place where the music was loud enough to drown out regrets, and the drinks flowed freely. Alex wasn't a big drinker, but something about the dim lighting, the laughter of old friends, and the bite of tequila had made him let his guard down. That's where she came in. A blonde woman, younger than him but not by much, had approached their table. She was vibrant, her laugh infectious, her gaze unrelenting. His friends had cheered him on as if they were still in their 20s, egging him into casual conversation. One drink turned into two turned into four, and then there was nothing, just a blank space in his memory. The next morning, Alex woke up with a pounding headache and the worst feeling of his life. He wasn't in his bed. He wasn't even in his house. Instead, he was lying in unfamiliar sheets next to the blonde from the night before. His heart froze in his chest. His first thought wasn't about where he was but who he was. A man who had betrayed the woman he loved. The woman stirred beside him, murmuring something unintelligible. He grabbed his phone, his jacket, and bolted from the apartment, his head swimming with nausea and shame. The whole day felt like a bad dream. He stood under the hot spray of the shower for an eternity, scrubbing his skin as though it could wash away the guilt. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. That evening, as Emma greeted him with her warm smile, a pang of guilt hit him like a freight train. He couldn't bring himself to meet her gaze. Her voice, so gentle and filled with love, only deepened the pit in his stomach. He vowed to himself that he would bury the mistake, never to repeat it. He would make it up to her. So, Alex started courting Emma like he had when they were young. He brought home flowers on random days. He took her out for dinner, surprising her with little gestures of affection. Emma responded with a radiant joy that made his guilt cut even deeper. It worked for a while. But a month later, the cracks in his plan began to widen. Alex's life was starting to stabilize. The guilt still gnawed at him, but he managed to shove it to the back of his mind. He told himself he had learned his lesson. He would never let himself slip like that again. Then came the first text message. It was from an unknown number. The photo attached showed Alex asleep in the blonde woman's bed. His heart sank, bile rising in his throat. He couldn't remember that moment, couldn't recall when the photo had been taken, but the evidence was undeniable. Recognize this? You should. If your wife sees it, she'll definitely recognize you. He stared at the screen, his pulse racing. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Before he could process, another message popped up. Pay me $2,000 and the photo disappears. I'll keep quiet. If not, Emma gets the truth. Alex felt his world tilt. Panic flooded his mind. His immediate thought was to block the number, but he hesitated. What if this person found another way to contact Emma? What if they weren't bluffing? The next day, the messages came again, and this time they escalated. The blonde wasn't just threatening to tell his wife. She was claiming she was pregnant. She sent another picture, a positive pregnancy test. The room spun as Alex's mind raced. Could it be true? Was this nightmare about to get even worse? He tried to reason with her over text, asking for proof, anything to verify her claim. But her responses were cryptic, evasive. She demanded money, claiming she would leave him alone if he paid up. Alex was trapped. If he sent the money, there was no guarantee she'd stop. If he didn't, she might follow through on her threats. He didn't sleep that night, his thoughts consumed by dread. He watched Emma sleep beside him, her face peaceful and innocent. How could he have done this to her? How could he have allowed one night to put everything they had at risk? The next morning, Alex made a decision. He couldn't live under the shadow of this woman's threats. He needed to end it permanently. He set up a meeting with her at a coffee shop downtown. She arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and a smug expression, her phone clutched tightly in her hand like a weapon. "Did you bring the money?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from him. "Not yet," Alex replied, his voice low. "I need proof first." She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Proof?" "Of the pregnancy," he clarified. "I want to see medical documents. Something that shows this isn't just another one of your games." She leaned back in her chair, a sly smile spreading across her face. "You think you're in control here, don't you? You don't get to make demands, Alex." "I do." But Alex didn't back down. He stared her down, his jaw tight. "No proof, no money. Simple as that." For a moment, she seemed to consider his words. Then she leaned forward, her expression turning icy. "Fine. You'll get your proof. But when you see it, I expect you to pay up. No games." As she got up to leave, Alex felt a small surge of hope. If she couldn't provide proof, maybe this nightmare would finally end. Days passed without a word from her. Alex started to relax, thinking maybe she had backed off. But just when he began to breathe easier, she struck again. This time, she sent him a grainy photo of a sonogram. Along with it came a chilling message. "Here's your proof. Now pay up, or Emma finds out everything." Alex's hands shook as he stared at the screen. He had no way of knowing if the sonogram was real or fake, but the risk was too high. He couldn't let Emma see this. Desperate, he confided in his best friend, Mark, someone he trusted with his life. Mark listened carefully, his expression grave. "You need to call her bluff," Mark said. "If you pay her, she'll bleed you dry. You've got to fight back." "But how?" Alex asked, his voice cracking. "She has the photos, the messages, the sonogram. I don't stand a chance." Mark leaned forward, his voice firm. "We dig into her. Find out who she really is. If she's lying about the pregnancy, we expose her. If she's not, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there." It wasn't much of a plan, but it was better than nothing. With Mark's help, Alex began investigating the woman. They scoured social media, looking for clues about her life. What they found shocked Alex to his core. The blonde, whose name he finally learned was Carla, had a history of pulling similar schemes. She had targeted other men before, claiming to be pregnant and demanding money to keep quiet. Armed with this information, Alex confronted her. This time he was ready. When they met again, he laid it all out on the table. The evidence of her past scams. The screenshots of her conversations with other men. The names of her previous victims. Carla's face went pale. "You don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Oh, I think I do," Alex replied, his voice steady. "And if you don't leave me and my family alone, I'll make sure everyone else knows too." Carla tried to argue, to twist the story in her favor, but Alex didn't budge. Eventually, she stormed out, leaving him sitting at the cafe table with a sense of relief he hadn't felt in weeks. When Alex got home that night, he hugged Emma tighter than ever before. He knew he'd made a mistake, a massive, unforgivable mistake, but he also knew he had been given a second chance. And this time, he wasn't going to waste it. Alex may have successfully ended Carla's schemes, but the chaos she unleashed still hung over his life like a dark cloud. The relief he felt after confronting her was fleeting, quickly replaced by a nagging sense of vulnerability. Though Carla had seemingly disappeared, he couldn't shake the fear that she might resurface. More than that, Alex's guilt weighed on him like a leaden chain. Every time Emma smiled at him, every time she kissed his cheek or asked about his day, it felt like a knife twisting in his gut. He had kept the entire ordeal hidden from her, convincing himself it was for her own good, but the secrecy was suffocating. Then came the moment he had dreaded most. One evening, Emma was tidying up their home when she stumbled across a slip of paper tucked into the pocket of Alex's jacket. The cafe receipt from his first meeting with Carla. She frowned as she read it. Alex had told her he'd been at work that day. So why did this receipt suggest otherwise? When Alex came home that night, he immediately knew something was wrong. Emma stood in the kitchen, the slip of paper in her hand. Her face was calm, but her eyes were stormy. "What's this?" she asked, holding up the receipt. Alex froze. His mind raced, scrambling for an explanation, but he could tell from her expression that no lie would work. I can explain, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma crossed her arms, waiting. And then, like a dam breaking, Alex confessed. He told her everything, the drunken night, the blackmail, the fake pregnancy. He spared no detail, hoping that complete honesty might somehow soften the blow. When he finished, Emma's face was unreadable. She stared at him for what felt like an eternity before finally speaking. "You cheated on me," she said quietly. Her voice didn't carry anger, just a profound sadness. "You lied to me, and you let me think everything was fine while you were hiding this." "I was scared," Alex admitted, his voice cracking. "I didn't want to lose you. I thought I could fix it without hurting you." Emma shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Do you even realize how much more this hurts? The betrayal, the secrecy. I don't even know who you are anymore." Alex, that night, Emma slept in the guest room, and Alex lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He had hoped that confessing would bring them closer, but instead, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. The days that followed were filled with tension. Emma spoke to Alex only when necessary, her tone curt and distant. She avoided eye contact, and when she wasn't working or tending to their home, she spent hours locked in the guest room. Alex tried to give her space, but the silence was unbearable. He wanted to make things right, to prove that he was still the man she had fallen in love with, but he didn't know how. One evening, he mustered the courage to knock on the door of the guest room. "Emma," he said softly, "can we talk?" The door opened a crack, and Emma stood there, her arms crossed. "What is there to talk about, Alex? You cheated. You lied. What else is there to say?" "I love you," Alex said, his voice trembling. "I made a terrible mistake, but I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Please, just tell me what I can do." Emma sighed, her expression weary. "I don't know if this can be fixed, Alex. Every time I look at you, all I see is betrayal. I don't even know if I can forgive you." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, but he nodded. "I understand," he said quietly, "but I'm not giving up. Not on us." Emma didn't respond. She closed the door, leaving Alex standing alone in the hallway. Weeks turned into months, and while things between Alex and Emma remained strained, they weren't entirely broken. Emma began speaking to him more, though her tone was still guarded. They started spending small moments together again, watching TV in the evenings, sharing meals at the table, but the warmth that had once defined their relationship was missing. Alex threw himself into proving his devotion. He took on more responsibilities around the house, planned thoughtful surprises for Emma, and even suggested couples therapy. First, Emma refused. "What's the point?" she said. "Talking won't undo what you did." But eventually, she agreed to try. Their first session was tense. Emma was honest, brutally so, about how Alex's actions had shattered her trust. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at him the same way," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. Alex listened quietly, his own eyes welling up. "I'll never forgive myself for what I did," he said. "But I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust, if you'll let me." The therapist encouraged them to take things one step at a time, to focus on rebuilding their connection rather than dwelling on the past. It wasn't easy, but slowly, they began to find their way back to each other. Just as Alex and Emma started to regain their footing, a new complication arose. One morning, Alex received an email from Carla. His stomach dropped as he opened it, dreading what he might find. The email was short and to the point. "Congratulations. You're going to be a father. I'll be in touch for child support." Attached was a photo of an ultrasound, along with a due date that aligned uncomfortably close to the night of Alex's mistake. Alex felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. He had convinced himself that Carla was bluffing, that the pregnancy was just another lie. But now, faced with this new evidence, he couldn't ignore the possibility. When he told Emma, her reaction was a mixture of shock and fury. "I can't believe this," she said, her voice shaking. "First you cheat on me, And now you might have a child with someone else? I'm going to demand a paternity test, Alex said quickly. I need to know for sure before anything else. Emma's eyes narrowed. And what if it is yours? What then, Alex? I don't know, he admitted, his voice breaking. But whatever happens, I want to figure it out with you. Please, Emma, don't give up on us. The paternity test took weeks to process, and during that time, Alex and Emma's relationship hung in the balance. Emma moved back into the guest room, putting even more distance between them. When the results finally arrived, Alex opened the envelope with trembling hands. The words on the page blurred as tears filled his eyes. The test confirmed what he had feared most. He was the father. When he told Emma, she sat in stunned silence. Then, without a word, she got up and walked out of the house. Alex didn't try to stop her. He knew she needed space to process what had just happened. Over the next few days, Alex reached out to Emma, sending her messages and leaving voicemails, but she didn't respond. He spent his nights lying awake, replaying their life together in his mind, wondering if he had destroyed it beyond repair. Finally, after a week of silence, Emma returned. She stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. I've been thinking, she said, her voice steady. This isn't just about us anymore. There's a child involved now. A child who didn't ask to be part of this mess. Alex nodded, his heart pounding. I know. And I want to do the right thing for the child and for you. Whatever that looks like. Emma took a deep breath. I'm willing to try. But things have to change, Alex. We can't go back to the way things were. If we're going to move forward, we need to rebuild everything. From the ground up, tears streamed down Alex's face as he nodded. I'll do whatever it takes, he said. For the first time in months, Emma stepped forward and took his hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. And for Alex, that was enough. For now.